It used to be 2.4, now it's 2.0. That's 0.4 sec. What? What is going on? What just happened? What? Who am I playing against? So hello gamers and welcome back to another video recorded live. So today I'm streaming the other half of the patch notes from the newest test place update, and this is probably where I'm going to talk about all the stuff that got removed. So please like and subscribe and watch until the end. So first off, we have barrels, and the AK-12 got its bars barrel completely nerfed. It's a little bit different. It's called the AK-12 bars now, and it seems to have different irons, which are cool. However, it has worse ranges. It shouldn't massively be an issue or anything. The Gyrojet Mark 1 long barrel in the last update got really bad, but they've kind of buffed it a little bit. It now increases your velocity by 80%, which is really cool until you realize the downsides of it, which are pretty bad. Basically, it will completely nerf your damage into the ground, and you can't one-shot except to the head, so it's really not good at all, but at least it's a little bit better than it was last update. And also now with 12 mil rockets, you can't one-shot to the head. However, you do have 2,400 velocity and a lot of RPM, which is cool, but like you don't really do that well with it. So I guess if you want like a really low recoil DMR, then it's not really going to be too bad. Actually, it's not really that bad, but I don't think I would really like recommend it because it can't one shot. There's actually a buff to the suppressor, which is really cool. Now it will reduce your minimum aimed vertical rotational recoil by 8% instead of 5%, and it will reduce your maximum. So basically, you'll have less. Okay, this is not the proper gun to test this on, but you'll have less rotational recoil overall by a little bit more than you did before, so an overall buff to it. The R2 suppressor got completely reworked. Now it will increase your vertical camera recoil by 10%. However, it will make your aimed horizontal camera recoil 15% better and your hipfire significantly better as well. So if you want increased vertical recoil but lower horizontal, so on a gun that really you don't care too much about the upwards kick of it, this is going to be really good. However, it will increase vertical, which is kind of interesting, and it will also make your hipfire significantly better. I'm not gonna lie, like that's a lot better hipfire than normal, which is really cool. And you have Barrett CQB barrel, which has a complete rework to it. Let me actually check this one out. So now we'll actually have only 80 RPM, and it can't one-shot quite as far. However, it has overall lower recoil. It'll make it a pretty good like semi-auto, DMR torso killing gun in close range. It's kind of an overall buff to it. It doesn't fire as quickly, but it's really good. I think this will actually make it better, which is kind of strange. MAC-10 carbine barrel also got a buff as well. It now increases your min damage range by 40%. It still has a massive downgrade to your damage overall, so I don't really recommend it. But since the MAC-10 has less damage now, maybe it's kind of worth it. It won't fall off quite as quickly by a lot. Like 40% more min damage range is cool. Higher velocity. It's really not a bad attachment now, and it will reduce your aimed vertical rotational recoil by 15%. It used to be 25% though, so it's not really as great, but I think it does, reduce recoil by kind of a little bit. But they actually buffed the psionic suppressor. It now no longer affects your max damage, which is kind of understandable because they nerfed the max damage of the MAC-10, and it will now increase your min damage range by a little bit more. Is this going to be a massive change to it? Not really. Made your damage 34, and now your damage is just 34 to begin with, so technically it's a buff to it, but it's really not at the same time. But it is a little bit better in terms of ranges, so it's going to actually be a tiny bit better than before, which is kind of interesting. I kind of like it. The oil filter actually got a bit of a buff. It now no longer reduces your ranges by as much and will make your model dampening and kick speed better. I really want to test this out, actually. That sounds pretty good. This is like a super recoil controlled setup. That is actually really good. Wait, what? So basically, you'll get better recoil on the oil filter and less downgrade in terms of ranges, which will make the oil filter still like not the best attachment to run overall, of course, because of the range downgrade and the velocity downgrade and the loss of RPM, but this should be a lot better than before. The muzzle booster also got a buff, which is kind of interesting, and now no longer will increase recoil by as much, which I don't really agree with. The entire point of this attachment was that it was supposed to increase your recoil. You use it for like really funny setups, like the extremely high recoil setups, and now you're not going to have as much recoil, but it's going to be an overall better attachment, which is cool. I didn't really use it too much outside of like meme setups, but it'll be a lot better in terms of recoil. It doesn't increase recoil by as much. The muffler now is a lot better. It will now reduce recoil by quite a bit more than it did before, and I'm talking like a lot more. So it might actually simply be a better version of the oil filter. It won't reduce your RPM by as much, which could be an upside or a downside depending on what you want from your gun, and this will be actually a really good attachment. Now, it sounds kind of It sounds really good on the Mac 10, I'm not gonna lie. So this is gonna be an overall upgrade to an attachment that really fell off in the last couple of updates, and I'm really happy about that. Oh, this one's massive. This is a really large change. So the muzzle brake actually got a massive buff, So before, the muzzle brake would actually increase your horizontal recoil, which was not really the best, you know, you didn't really want that increase. That's why it wasn't really the meta attachment unless you had literally no horizontal recoil. Now it doesn't do that. It only reduces your vertical recoil, and it does that by a little bit more as well. So it's actually going to be pretty cracked for vertical recoil. I don't really know if this is a good change because they could have just made it, you know, reduce recoil by more, but also still increase your horizontal, because technically speaking, this attachment has absolutely no downside now, which is an interesting change, I'm not gonna lie. The AK-105 squad barrel now reduces torso multiplier to 1.0 times. That's because they actually buffed this gun in the last update, so now it does have a torso multi and a better headshot multi. So the squad barrel will make it a little bit different. It does increase your RPM still. The sawed-off barrel and the combat barrel on the DT-11 now increase spread by a lot more. The sawed-off barrel is going to be by 150%, which is kind of a lot. Let me check this. Okay, so that's not too bad for here, but what about here? Yeah, it's pretty bad for a double barrel, I'm not gonna lie. So this will fall off a lot harder than before, as you can see. Still should be like a decent attachment for close range because of the change from the last update. If you haven't seen that, I made a video about a month ago talking about the last test place update, and that basically made the DT-11 have lower damage, more pellets, but with sawed-off barrel, it gets better damage. So it does like 39 times 12 with the sawed-off barrel, which will make it insanely good, only for very close range. And now that you have even more spread, it'll be, oh, wow, okay. Maybe not, actually, because okay, no, it's still broken. It's still broken. It has a lot of spread, but like the damage is really good per pellet. And this should be like kind of insane, I'm not gonna lie. The DT-11 integral suppressor finally got a buff and now no longer changes your spread, which is really cool. I really like that because I don't think this really was a usable attachment at all. Like if it increases your spread, don't use it. Now it doesn't do that. So it should just honestly be a really fun attachment. It'll be really quiet, and if you don't really want a choke attachment or a barrel attachment, this will be basically the #1 attachment to run on the gun. It will reduce your velocity, which technically will make your spread a little bit worse, but it doesn't like directly decrease your spread anymore, which will make it definitely a lot more usable. I do like a little bit less spread, making this like an actual viable attachment. Like it still will increase your spread, but not by like anywhere near to as much. The Obris front post got a complete rework as well, and it's on the Mosin as well. What does it even do though? It appears to do like literally nothing. Yep, it literally does like nothing. So I don't know why. Ooh, wait, it does change your iron sights. Oh, that's cool. You get the Obris irons, but on the I kind of like that. So they made the Mosin actually zoom again. Oh, that's awesome. I'm so excited. I'm going to actually use the Mosin again. I'm so excited about that, man. So for some reason, they buffed the Hera CQR grip. I have no idea why. It's not a massive buff, but it's a buff nonetheless. Sideways grip now got a little bit of a nerf and now reduces your aiming speed by 5%. So not as good on sniper rifles, not by a ton or anything. For some reason, they buffed the Romanian grip. I don't know why, because Romanian grip was always pretty trash until a couple of months ago when they made it probably one of the best grips in the entire game. And now it's still one of the best grips in the entire game. I don't know, they buffed it. They didn't buff it by a ton. Make your model kick speed and kick damper better. So yes, you basically kick faster. So on those lower RPM guns, you're just even better in terms of recoil control. Folded grip, which is an attachment that nobody ever cared about before, will now make your aiming and walk speed better. And it doesn't seem to affect your recoil. Wait, what? Oh, it will make your hipfire dampening worse, but kind of a buff to the MP7 if you don't want to use a grip. So I don't really recommend it too much, but if you don't have any attachments on the MP7, use this because you just get like a little bit better walk speed and stuff, which is cool. But it also doesn't make any sense because you're folding the grip, you're not removing the grip, so why would it have less weight? You're just folding it in. I don't understand. MP5 SD burst trigger grouping, which actually got buffed in the last test place update, got nerfed again, but not by a ton. It will now give you 20 minimum damage on the MP5 SD, which is cool, but it used to give you 21. This is probably because of the nerf to min damage on the MP5 SD, which is a weird change. I don't really like that change, but pretty good attachment, I guess. The FAMAS G2, I talked about this in my last video. It has a better reload time now, but it now does significantly lower damage, and 223 is no longer really usable on this. It's kind of, no, it's a little bit usable. Yeah, it's a nerf. Mag 10 stock now got a nerf for some reason. It doesn't reduce your recoil by as much. Suppress Makarov and Makarov 12-round magazines got a little bit of a rebalance. They now will reduce your aiming speed. Not that it matters because they have amazing aiming speed, but they reload faster. So this is an overall definitely buff to the 12-round mags because it's had really awful reload times for only getting like 4 more rounds to the point of being like completely unusable. And now they're going to be pretty nice. Like, you know, it used to be 2.4, now it's 2.0. That's 0.4 sec. What is going on? What just happened? What? Who am I playing against? The HK337 now has worse ranges, so the dust shot ammo type is now called the rat shot ammo type, and they reduced the amount of pellets and the damage by quite a bit, which is weird because it was never really like that used or that great. Especially on the BFG, this makes absolutely no sense because this is a 25x10 shotgun with alright spread that only has 1 bullet and a really long reload. You may as well just use like the KS23M. It does more damage and probably has better spread, but you know, it doesn't have 1 bullet. It doesn't make any sense for this change, I'm not gonna lie. The MT36 got a nerf, I think. It has 100 rounds again. It has better reserve ammo again, but it has reduced damage and reduced minimum damage. Interesting. And it also has a slower reload time, but this has 100 bullets again. That's kind of cracked. I don't know if that's good. The AWP conversion on the AWM has a faster reload. It has lower velocity, so not a big change. Score L 9x19 actually got a bit of a nerf. It's actually a pretty big nerf as well and should make the conversion a little bit less broken, which is cool. It falls off harder over range and has worse ranges, which makes sense because this conversion was absolutely busted. Still gonna be really, really good. I got a 135 kill game with it, and it still has the same recoil, so it's still really, really good. Olga A1 actually got a nerf to its 9mm conversion. It now does 32 damage. Why would you ever use this ever again? I don't know. It has worse ranges as well, but it does have faster RPM. But why would you ever use it? I don't know. It's a 4-shot kill. Yes, it's accurate, but I don't know. Not a very good change overall, in my opinion. They could have kept this exactly the same and just nerfed Scar L9mm, and it would have made exactly like perfect sense because Scar L9mm was always better than the AUG A1 Para, but I guess the AUG A1 Para got a nerf as well. Still feels pretty good though. That would have killed if that was a 3-shot. The DBV 410 got a massive nerf. I don't know why, because nobody was complaining about it, but it kind of lost everything that made it interesting at all. Now has 15 bullets, does way, way worse damage, and it doesn't burst. Yeah, it's in semi-auto now. So why? I guess it fires fast? I like the reload though. I mean, it does fire really, really quickly, I'm not gonna lie. The Automag 5, which was a conversion that was overall kind of on the AM3, actually got a nerf. I don't know why. It only one-shots to 20 studs, which is really bad. Rubber Pellets now has a better torso multiplier on both 410 and default. It still sucks. Do not use it. Mac 10 9mm actually got a bit of a nerf. Has a better min damage range, but has worse damage. It's not really a huge difference, but yeah, it is a nerf. Scorpion Rat Shot from the last update, actually quite a bit worse, but it's still going to be kind of cracked. It has awful range now. However, it still does the same in close range, but it has really awful ranges. It falls off over 10 studs from 13 to 5 damage a pellet. So it is going to be a pretty big nerf, but I still think it'll be insane for close range. Yeah, still going to be really, really good for close range. I love this conversion, man. It's so good. The FT300 actually got its RPM reduced, but it shouldn't actually reduce your RPM. Oh yeah, I forgot to say. Yeah, that's 22 on the FT300. It has 50 bullets. You have a 50 bullet sniper rifle, and it doesn't have to reload ever. The RPK 762 by 39mm has more recoil now, and reduced damage and reduced range. So if you really like RPK 12 762 conversion, it's significantly worse. AK-109 and AK-103 and the AK-107 got some pretty big changes to their damage. They have a little bit better damage actually, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, Bars Barrel now does 35 to 24, so it doesn't 4-shot all ranges, but it 3-shots up close, and I feel like that's actually better. Like, I would prefer the 3-shot to the 5-shot. Oh my gosh, this is going to be super good. Yeah, it sounds really cool now as well. I really like that. Super cracked, and also like it's still a 4-shot at any range if you hit 1 headshot, which I feel like with the recoil is significantly easier than most guns, like significantly easier. So going to be a really cracked gun if this makes it to the main game, is already really cracked, but maybe even more. Tracerless actually got a buff, and that's actually really cool. I'm glad that they did that, because Tracerless was always kind of the ammo type that nobody really cared about. It reduces range and pen, but will make your hip fire better, your model kick speed better, and your suppression radius 75% worse. So if you want to have worse suppression range, that's kind of cool. Like, you don't want to suppress people, but if you do want to suppress people and get suppressed enemies, then do not use this for sure. You do have a little bit better recoil, but worse range. AUG A2 762 actually got a bump. It now does 1 more damage. It's really not that big of a deal. SA58 SPR 45 ACP got a nerf. Now no longer increases your RPM. You still get 500, which is not too bad, but you don't get 700 anymore, which was a little bit too much. X95 SMG Triplex now has a reduced reload time, but doesn't have a torso multiplier anymore. It has worse damage over range, so it's definitely a bit of a nerf to it. Not a huge one, surprisingly, because I feel like that is still a amazing conversion, but it will kind of fall off a little bit harder. It can't really 3-shot kill as far. Still has the same headshot multi, which is interesting, but yeah, it's a pretty interesting change to it. The TRG also has different iron sights, but its 338 Norma conversion now has a 30 stud kill range and cannot torso kill past 30 studs, so do not ever use this conversion again, unless you like a little bit more velocity, I guess, or headshotting. Ooh. It does increase your RPM slightly, but not by a ton. Super Armor Piercing now gives you 3 studs of pen and increases your torso multiplier to 1.1 times, but reduces your minimum damage by 15% and sets your initial damage range to 10 studs. So basically, you get 3 studs of pen again, which is really cool. However, you have really awful ranges and worse damage over range that you can make up for, kind of with the torso multiplier, but not fully. So you're gonna have to hit your torso shots over range. But also, kind of, it's a buff because you get a 3-shot on the RPK-12, but only did 10 studs, so it's, I don't know, it's like a buff and a nerf and a buff and a nerf. Kind of an interesting change. I kind of like it. The T36K, which is the G36K 300 blackout conversion, which is already a really bad conversion. I don't really recommend it. They nerfed it. Yeah. Worse range and worse damage over range. So it's definitely a there conversion. It exists. It is definitely a conversion in the game. Polo rounds got a little bit of a nerf to their damage. They haven't actually been added to the game, but they were really, really busted last update. And they're no longer on the Stevens, only on... That is interesting. They're going to be kind of cracked, but they're not on the Stevens, which is good because on the Stevens, they were a little bit too good with their velocity and stuff. The ZX7 got a bit of a nerf to it, kind of. It has worse damage, but it has a torso multiplier and it has better range now. So you're now going to have to hit 2 torso shots in order to 2-shot kill. M16A1 M855 now has worse range than it did when it first came out. And of course, it still has a ton of recoil. Class P actually got a bit of a nerf. It increases range 1 by 15%, but it no longer increases range 0. The 9mm conversion on the Scorpion now has worse reserve ammo and does worse damage over range. Oh, it does worse damage in close range. Okay. For some reason, they nerfed Lancaster ammo on the SVDS and now no longer will one-shot as far. Now it one-shots to 100 studs instead of 110. So is it a great conversion? No. Also, the aiming is still broken on it. Headshot, no kill. Yeah, don't use this conversion. Got him. WOT2K 7.5 Swiss now has reduced torso multiplier and reduced RPM. So if you wanted that torso kill back on the new version of the WOT2K, too bad for you, I guess. Still pretty good for the RPM and stuff, but yeah, not quite as great. 375 Shade Attack conversion on the Intervention now gives you about the same RPM as the old version, like the original Intervention. So the ECR with 556 now has a slower reload time. Not by a ton. So now we're on to some of the removed attachments. First off, removed 9x19 on the Scar PDW and the Hammer. Remove 223 and 22 from the SAS. Nobody cares though. Remove 410 from the ECR, the Mosin, and the Obris. So the full Obris is completely gone. Nobody knows why. Slugs and Buckshot are removed on the RPK and the AK-47. CTS Sting Ball and 410 Bore were removed from the M79 Thumper. 762 is removed from the AK-12. That is the 50-round drum mag. I don't know where it's gone. 556 is gone from the AK-12. I don't know why. 50 GI and 556x30 were removed on the Colt SMG. I don't know why. And 45 ACP was removed on the C7A2. So yeah, if you like any of those conversions, they are now gone from the game. M14 semi-auto trigger grip is also gone from the last test place update. The Model 700 is the new name of the Remington. Same with the Model 870, which is cool changes. I don't really have a problem with that. The G3A3 is the new name of the G3, unless you use wooden furniture, which is the new attachment I talked about in my last video on the update. But overall, weird changes, I'm not gonna lie.